service is cost incurred in providing the service. So it can therefore be stated that this principle may be having the limited application areas. So that marks the end of the tax theories that came up as a result of the canon of the equity. The canon of the equity. So how about the canon of productivity? The canon of productivity asserts that the tax revenue should be sufficient to cater for government expenditure use, or the tax should yield satisfactory amount, but still it shouldn't distort the production. So how about the canon of diversity? The canon of diversity here, a good tax system should have multiple tax systems. So therefore, the burden should be distributed to the entire economy without causing much harm to anyone. So let's look at the canon of coordination. The canon of coordination here, of course, the tax administration, the central tax administration, and the local tax administration should have to be coordinated. So therefore, the tax should be coordinated. There should be the coordination between the different tax burden. So therefore, there is a need to have a coordination between the centralized and decentralized taxes. So, and there should be the coordination between the different tax authorities. As I've said, that we have different tax authorities, where we have the decentralized tax authority and decentralized tax authority. Therefore, there should be coordination in between. How about the flexibility? The flexibility, as the last canon but not the least, talks about the flexibility in terms of tax payments. So therefore, the tax system should be flexible so that it can go hand in hand with the change in the economic activities. So class, this is the end of the canons of taxation, or the principles of taxation as were brought forward by Adam Smith. From the canons of taxation, we have to look at the factors. From the canons of taxation, we need to look at the factors that determine the taxable capacity. Because for the individuals to pay the taxes, or for the business to pay the tax, these people should have the capacity to do so, should have the capacity to honor the taxes. So we need to look at the factors that determine the tax capacity. So the number one factor here is the size of the income. We can talk of the production. We can talk of the standards of living. We can talk of the price levels. We can talk of the distribution of or we can talk of the income inequalities, income equality, income inequalities. So I think these are the major factors. These are the major parameters that can determine the taxable the tax capacity. Of course, when the size of income is big, of course that will make the taxpayers to be able to honor the taxes that have been being imposed by the tax administration. But when the size of the income is very low, that will make the people not to be able to pay the taxes they are being charged by the tax authorities. How about the production? If there's inefficiencies in production, of course that will yield the poor results, because the production is not running efficiently. So that makes the taxpayers not to be able to pay the taxes as expected. How about the standards of living? So, of course, if the standards of living is very high, that makes able the taxpayers to get the taxes they can be able to pay the tax administration. How about the price levels? If the price levels are very high, that means that there is a gradual inflation in the economy, and that will distort the paying of taxes. But when the prices are lower, of course, that also can cause the deflation, so which also affects the economy and therefore affects the tax capacity. How about the income inequalities? For the point of income inequalities, we can talk of income inequalities, where there is a bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots, when there is a bigger gap between the poor and the rich. So of course, if we have the rich people, these people will be able to pay the taxes, as we have seen that this can be backed up by the capitalist school of thought, where they say that those who pay taxes should enjoy the lion's share. So there is a benefit approach here, of course, because the wealthy people are able to pay taxes, and those taxes can be able to go and bridge the gap between those wealthy people and the poor ones, between the haves and the have-nots. The gap between the haves and have-nots After finishing the factors that determine the tax capacity, we need to look at here the major concepts in the tax practices, where these concepts are two concepts. Number one concept is what they call the tax evasion, and the tax avoidance. So, what is tax evasion, or what is the tax avoidance? First of all, when we talk of tax avoidance, we talk of the legal minimization of tax liabilities, and tax evasion is illegal, of course. But tax avoidance, it is legal minimization of taxes. How about the tax evasion? The tax evasion here, it says, it means that it is illegal minimization. It is illegal minimization of tax burden by providing wrong information. Tax burden by providing the wrong information. This is tax evasion. This is tax evasion, so this is tax avoidance. So what is tax avoidance? So as I've said, that tax avoidance, it is a legal minimization, of minimization of tax burden by using the loopholes, or gaps existing in the tax structure. So these are the major also concepts in tax practices. So from here, let's look at the classifications of taxes. In the classification of taxes, taxes have got different classifications. Like the number one classification, it is classification as to nature, or nature of taxes, as to nature or individuals. The second classification it has got a classification as to the burden of tax. The third classification it has got is classification according to determination. Determination of amount. The fourth classification, it is classification according to the scope of authority. Classification according to the scope of authority. Another classification I can talk of is classification according to the graduation or the scope of rates. According to the scope of rates or graduation of taxes. The graduation of taxes. The last but not the least is classification according to the purpose. Classification according to the purpose. So these are the major classification of taxes. These are the classifications the tax structure has got. So let's expound one by one. We need to check the first classification, the classification as to nature of taxes as number one. Classification as to nature of taxes. Here, the taxes is classified based on the characteristics of tax. It bases to characteristics of taxes, or what they call the capitation tax, the capitation tax, or poll tax, or personal tax, or personal tax. The second thing we need to look at here is the property. The property tax, of course. This property tax brings us the imposition of the property tax, the real, like the real tax. We can talk of personal tax, depending on the belongings or the properties the person may be owning, in proportion to its value, or in accordance with method or apportionment. For instance, real estate. So it also, we need to look at also under this nature of the tax, it can also bring the excise duties, where these are the duties that are imposed upon the performance of an act, the enjoyment of the privilege, or the engaging in occupation or professional or business. For example, income tax. The example of exercise here, we can talk of like the income tax, the VAT, or the estate tax, or the donors tax. How about the classification as to who bears the burden of tax? The classification as to who bears the burden of tax. Here we need to look at, it gives us taxes like direct tax. It also gives us the tax like indirect tax. So the direct tax is a tax that is charged on the person who also bears the burden thereof. Example, income tax. Income tax. So here we need to look at the advantages of direct taxes. Number one advantage of direct taxes is the levy elasticity. So let's look at advantages of direct taxes. The advantages of the direct taxes. Number one advantage is the revenue. The revenue elasticity. When you talk of revenue elasticity, it says as the income increases, the tax will also increase. As the income, Y stands for the income. As the income increases, also the tax will have to increase. Tax also increase. The second thing here is ability to pay. The second merits of direct taxes is ability to pay. The ability to pay, of course, we have seen that this one promotes the ability to pay approach. It promotes the ability to pay approach. The third advantages of the direct taxes, we can talk, it is efficient allocation of the resources. the efficient application of resources, where the resources have to be utilized, where the resources have to be allocated very well. So a direct tax leaves the taxpayer on the same indifferent curve, on the same indifference consumption curve. The next advantage it can talk of here is the income inequality. Income inequality. The income inequality, as I've said, that income inequality here, we look at the gap that is existing between the haves and the have-nots, or between the rich people, the wealthy people, and the poor people, that has to be bridged due to the revenues that have been raised. And if the revenues have been raised, these revenues have to be distributed fairly to bridge that gap that is existing. Another thing here we need to look at is the civic responsibility. The civic responsibility as also one of the merits of the direct taxes, the civic responsibility. The civic responsibility, where it implies that this makes people more responsible or more vigilant on the taxes they are paying. Let's continue by talking about the demerits or disadvantages of direct taxes. Disadvantages of direct taxes. So one of the disadvantages here of direct taxes, it is high administrative costs. High administrative costs involved. High administrative. When you talk of high administrative costs, the direct taxes has got very many correction points, which makes it expensive to administer. It has got very many corrections, many correction points. So this makes it to be very high. So the second demerit here we can talk of is the tax evasion. The direct taxes, one of also the disadvantage or demerit of direct taxes is tax evasion. Of course, tax evasion, a direct tax is easy to evade by falsifying the books of accounts, by falsifying the documents. So that can also cause give it as a disadvantage of direct taxes. So the third point I can talk about here is the point of inconvenience. So inconvenience here, a direct tax is not convenient to pay since it is paid in a lump sum. So most of the direct taxes, they are paid in lump sum. So therefore, this becomes as inconvenient. Another point is it also affects the will to work. The will to work has to be affected when it comes for the demerits of direct taxes, where if the tax is too high, so it affects the motivation to work, because the taxes the taxes are very high. So that discourages the will to work. So discourages the will to work. Another factor here, another demerit here is the definitional issues. Definitional issues can also be the demerit of tax. So there is a loan for the manipulation of tax base. There is a loan for manipulation. The manipulation of of tax base, the last but not the least is that, but I think these are enough. As you guys, you are still young researchers, you can also conduct a research on more of demerits of direct taxes. So let's look at the demerits. Demerits of indirect taxes. The merits of indirect taxes. Number one, merits of taxes, indirect taxes, I can talk of is fewer correction points. Fewer correction because fewer correction points which reduces administrative costs. If there is fewer correction points under the indirect taxes, because like indirect taxes, we have seen that these are taxes like a VAT, value added tax. So since the correction points are very fewer, that can decrease the administrative costs. The second factor here can be the convenience. So convenience here, because most of the indirect taxes here, they are paid in installments. Talk an example of VAT. Sometimes for you to be a VAT registered taxpayer, you need to be making a turnover of 20 million annually. But there's also another ease where if a businessman can be able to make the turnover of 5 million quarterly, he can also be registered as VAT taxpayer. Therefore, some of the indirect taxes are paid in installments, so that brings the merit that becomes advantageous to the taxpayer because they are really convenient with the tax they are paying. So another factor here I can talk of evasion. So it is very difficult. It's difficult to evade the tax. It's very difficult to evade tax because most of these taxes are paid indirectly. You find that the last customer or the last consumer is the ones who feels the burden of the tax. So that brings the issue of tax incidence. Another factor here is it also brings the revenue elasticity. So revenues sometimes can be elastic or it can also be inelastic. I think these are enough merits of indirect taxes. You can also check more of them, but indirect taxes doesn't have a lot of demerits of taxes. But one of the demerits of indirect taxes, it doesn't favor the ability to pay tax approach. I have finished the classification as to nature. I have finished the classification as to the burden of tax. So let me check on the classification, the determination of the amount. Classification as to determination of amount as third classification. Here we have first of all, we can present it like this for the convenience of you guys to understand this concept, here we can talk of decentralized, and here we can say centralized. This is under another classification. Here, under the determination of amount, we can present it in this way by saying that there are taxes here that are called specific taxes. And here there are taxes called ad valorem taxes. And what are these taxes? These taxes are under the classification as to the determination of, according to determination of amount. So the specific tax here, we talk of amount of tax. Amount of tax is determined based on the physical unit. What do I mean by the physical unit? For example, we can talk of meters, we can talk of liters, we can talk of kgs, kilograms, we can talk of the volume, so on and so forth, etc. So on and so forth. So therefore, the higher the volume, for instance, the higher the volume of alcohol, the higher the tax to be paid. Still under the specific taxes, we can say the consumption tax on the oil products. Consumption tax on oil products. We can also it can also give us the property tax on a plot of land. Property tax on plot of land. So guys, let us look at what does a valorem taxes give us or composes of. This one, in a brief, it is the amount. It looks at the amount. Amount here is determined based on the value of item.